Hello, everyone. Waiting for Facebook to get caught up here and get everything up on my screen so that I can see any comments that are coming in and so forth while we're talking today. Today is going to be a shorter um, video, but what we're doing here is I'm going to share what we currently know about different nutrients in relation to this virus. The big thing is there's a lot we can be doing to give ourselves a fighting chance. We're not hearing as much about it in mainstream media or from the appointed public health experts, which I have a problem with. Because if our whole goal is to try to minimize severe symptoms and ultimately death, then we should be sharing everything, even if it's new research that still obviously is ongoing. But as long as it's not harmful to someone, we should be sharing all that, right? So that we can make an informed decision ourselves on what we want to put in our body, what we want to do to help strengthen our immune system and help fight this thing off. So that's why last week we did one on vitamin D. You can go back and watch that video. That was a real good one because there's a lot of studies and data on that right now. Um, so that's a very important one to watch. Today we're going to actually talk about zinc. And so, it's been talked about in regards to potentially helping this virus in regards to keeping it from replicating when it's inside the body and killing it off. But we're going to share at least what we know today in regards to current facts, what research has been completed, what's still ongoing, and so forth, so that, again, you can make that informed decision to give yourself a fighting chance. And hopefully, we're all going to be exposed to this at some point if we aren't already. Some people, I just found out today, I have some friends that half their family actually has the antibodies. They never even knew they had it, right? But they're also healthy. They have strong immune systems. And, I would assume that played a major part in that, right? The rest are going to go get some blood drawn to see if they have the antibodies. But obviously, we know it affects many people in different ways. Sometimes it depends on the type of blood type, is some of the data showing that certain blood types seem to be more predisposed to more severe infection than others. So obviously, we know diabetes, underlying health factors, being overweight contribute to that, right? So doing what we can to strengthen our own body, our own immune system is the best approach, right? Because most people aren't even going to have an opportunity to take the vaccine even if they decide they want it for another 4 or 5 months at least. So we got a long ways to go. So let's talk about zinc. Here's what we know. It is the second most common mineral in our body. It actually affects all of our organs and cells, so it plays an important role in the body, right? Like I said, it's not as well as researched as vitamin D is in regards to virus, or specifically this virus, I should say. But there's lots of studies that are currently ongoing right now. A few have finished, which is triggering more new studies based off of what they found, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Most of the data we have is from older studies looking at just overall immune health, right? And what they found in these older studies is when there's an increased zinc concentration, it actually has helped with preventing the replication of some RNA viruses. And that's kind of where the talk of can zinc help with coronavirus or COVID, that's where that talk has come from. That's where these research studies have been brought up, right? In regards to, we have this older research. Does it translate to what's currently happened now? Can it help with that specifically, right? We know that zinc may help with treating or lessening your symptoms of a common cold, right? Because we see zinc lozenges, we see other over-the-counter medications. We've seen that zinc has been beneficial for other respiratory infections and things like that, right? Some studies, they've also shown that it can actually increase the number of T cells and NK cells. And these are the types of cells that go out and help fight that virus. When it's discovered in the body, they go out, find the virus, kill it off, keep it from replicating, and then you get better, right? And so much of the study is, does it help with this current coronavirus? That's the big question. So there was a recent study done. Like I said, there's many studies ongoing for zinc right now. Most of them are still in the active stage, so that we don't have a lot of data. But a couple that have finished, and this one was one of the first in vivo evidence that showed that zinc sulfate actually may play a role in the management of COVID-19. And it was because of other what's called in vitro evidence that suggested that zinc sulfate may actually be helpful against COVID-19. And these hospitals that were in the study began using it in addition to the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin that they were using to treat these patients, right? They started adding zinc sulfate as an add-on. And what they found was that zinc sulfate increased the frequency of patients being discharged home. It decreased the need for ventilation, and as well as decreased admissions to the ICU. It also found that the mortality or transfer to hospice for patients who were never admitted to the ICU also went down. So, like I mentioned, this is very early, but it's these types of studies, right? And this is one of the first that's been completed that's indicating that maybe there's something to this. Maybe there is a reason why we need to make sure we have enough zinc to help fight off this specific virus, right? And again, this is just one study, but hopefully over the next month or 2, 3 months, we're going to see a lot more of these studies go to completion, and we're going to see the results of those. So in another study that was reported actually at the European Coronavirus Conference, presented these findings. Said researchers from Spain found that hospitalized COVID-19 patients with low blood levels of zinc tended to fare worse than those with healthier levels. And as we know, we've seen that happen with vitamin D too. Those that were vitamin D deficient or have low vitamin D levels tend to have more severe symptoms. They believe that this lower zinc level correlates with a higher inflammation in the body, which means your body's not able to truly fight off that infection as well, right? You end up with a poorer outcome. According to one of the researchers at this hospital, his name is Dr. Roberto Guerreri Fernandez, and he's in this hospital in Barcelona. Dr. Len Horowitz of the Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City, he's a pulmonologist. He actually also added to this study and said, it's long been thought that zinc bolsters the immune system, which, like I said, we've talked about that. The possible explanation is that zinc may have an anti-inflammatory effect, which is protective, right? So those that had this coronavirus, a lot of times they get what's called a cytokine storm, or a huge surge in inflammation, and the body has a trouble fighting that off. It's almost like it's fighting against itself, right? So obviously one indication in theory is that zinc helps keep that inflammation low so that your body doesn't overreact, right? And in the study, after they adjusted for factors such as age and gender and illness severity and treatments received, this is what they found. Every unit increase of zinc in the blood, so your zinc level, every time it went up technically 1 point or so, they found that it was tied to a 7% lowering of the odds that a patient would die while in the hospital. And now this study was obviously relatively small. Like I said, these studies are just starting to get going, and some are getting to completion. So there's further research that needs to be done on this, but this is an indication that maybe there's something here. This is why we're continuing to research all of this. Yes, it doesn't have the same amount of evidence and data as vitamin D, but hopefully in a couple months they will. We'll see how the results play out in regards to these ongoing research studies to find out how much of a role does zinc actually play with minimizing symptoms or helping people with recovery that have COVID. We also know this. Zinc deficiency isn't as widespread as vitamin D deficiency is, but the reports are showing that possibly up to 30% of the older population may be deficient. So we have to pay close attention to this because it's the older population that we know is going to be at an increased risk for contracting COVID, right? As well as maybe not being able to recover from it as quickly because of other factors. So that's one point to note. It's hard to say right now, absolutely you need to do this and that, but all the indications are showing that it may be beneficial. So it's something we need to pay attention to with this. We know that NIH has published upper tolerable limits for zinc, and that is 40 milligrams per day. What this means is that most people should be able to take up to that amount without a high risk of consuming too much zinc, right? Or reaching that toxicity level. Since zinc is needed for immune cell development, it does play an important role in inflammatory responses. And so we want to make sure that we're getting adequate amounts of it, right? I mentioned earlier that, it's not as widespread from a deficiency standpoint as vitamin D is, but if you're a person that doesn't eat much red meat or dairy products or beans or nuts, it's going to be a little harder for you to get adequate amounts of zinc into the body. So some people may be a little more predisposed to being on the lower end of zinc than others with that. When you combine this with the theory that if zinc helps to keep viruses from replicating, well then, is zinc getting depleted when it's trying to fight off these viruses, right? Are we using up our zinc when it's trying to keep these viruses from replicating inside the body? And again, hopefully research kind of nails that down a little, but that is one theory that researchers are looking at is if we get too low on zinc, is that when viruses kind of start to take over, right? Because we've run out. So given that the upper limit is 40 milligrams per day, most health professionals are recommending 15 to 30 milligrams a day to make sure that the zinc levels are maximized, yet not reaching too high of a level. General way to know if you're getting too much zinc is if you start to experience nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. Now, this isn't a guarantee that you have too much zinc, but it could be a sign that you have more than enough zinc and you can back off whatever zinc supplement you're taking, lower the dosage down and see if that doesn't get better. One thing to point out is zinc does interfere with some prescription medications. So if we want to supplement with 15 to 30 milligrams of zinc per day, we need to probably check with physicians, make sure that if you are taking prescription medications, you're not going to reduce the effectiveness of that medication or cause some weird reaction with that. So it's probably good advice anyways if you're taking any prescription medication to always check with your doctor if you're going to add a new supplement, just to make sure, is there any contraindication? Is there something that I shouldn't be taking together? Do I need to be taking certain things apart so that, again, your prescription medications work properly? As more research comes in specific to this COVID and zinc supplementation, I'll be sure to share the data with you. But as far as what we know now with the limited data, it does appear that zinc deficiency can cause more severe symptoms, and that 15 to 30 milligrams per day is a relatively safe dose and it's under the NIH upper tolerable limit for safe amounts. It's going to help you maximize that zinc. So again, as research comes out, if we do find that, hey, this is playing an important role, then you've given yourself a fighting chance. You've made sure that you're doing what you can to strengthen that immune system, right? Because the more we can do to strengthen it, the more we can give ourselves a chance, the better chance we have to fight off this virus as well as any other viruses that we encounter pretty much every winter, right? So if you haven't watched my vitamin D video yet, I'm going to post it in the comments below so you can go back and check that out, because there is a lot of good data on that in regards to if you're not doing enough vitamin D, be sure to watch that, because that can definitely help reduce symptoms and help fight off viruses as they enter the body. Finally, we still have some of the 1,000 bottles left that we set aside at our manufactured cost for Immunodefense 4X. You can grab a bottle of Immunodefense 4X that contains Epicor, vitamin D, quercetin, and bromelain, and you get it at our cost. We're only charging what it costs us to make it. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to give people as much of a fighting chance as they can. Some people definitely have their jobs, some are getting overtime, but there's plenty that are struggling, right? And if you suffer with your nutrition because you can't afford to go buy the groceries and you can't afford to eat the way you want from a health standpoint, that's going to put you at risk. So we decided to set aside 1,000 bottles and just sell them at what it costs us to make that bottle. So you can go grab that bottle. I'll give you the link here in a second. But Immunodefense 4X was designed to give your immune system that fighting chance, right? It helps to increase IgA antibodies, which is your in your nasal passages, and it's your innate immunity. So that's like your first layer of defense. As a virus comes in, you have your innate immunity that tries to block it or shut it down right there. Vitamin D is a big part of that. Epicor is a big part of that. And then you have what's called your adaptive immunity. So if a virus does get past your first layer, now it's your adaptive immunity that goes out and kills off that virus when it recognizes that it's in the body, right? And it has the immunodefense 4X has the ability to increase what's called NK killer cells. And this has been shown through multiple research studies within 2 hours. So when you take it daily, you're consistently putting your immune system on alert, right? You have the weapons available so that if a virus is coming in and gets past your innate level in your first layer, you have these NK killer cells to go and seek it out and destroy it. So it's a two-pronged approach to immune system health, which we all need. I mean, nothing's foolproof, right? We're going to find things that do get past that innate level, and we need our adaptive immune response to go ahead and do its job at that point. So give yourself that fighting chance by consuming these nutrients, and you can go to www.immunodefenseoffer.com and grab a bottle at manufacturer cost. Like I said, it's just what we pay to make that bottle. We still have a few of the we set aside 1,000 bottles. We still have some left, so go grab some. I'll be back soon with another nutrient that we can discuss and share what science is telling us. So again, we give ourselves that fighting chance and keep ourselves as healthy as possible during this very unpredictable time. So hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a share so that others can, again, learn how to protect themselves as much as possible. We obviously know there's a lot of people that are for the vaccine. We know there's a lot that are against the vaccine. So regardless of which side of the fence you land on with that, none of us are going to have access to that vaccine, or very few of us are, for 4 or 5 months now, right? So we still have a long ways to go to keep ourselves healthy. So if you believe in that mask, don't believe that it's the only thing you can do. It's just one tool. These are other tools that you can add to keep yourself as strong as possible. So go grab a bottle at www.immunodefenseoffer.com, and I'll be back soon with another video.